to happen in one stroke, and it's supposed to look cool. Stay. Thank you for being here. Yay! I'm so glad. I'm going to do a children's song. I know we have at least one children in the house. So y'all have to suffer. But C.S. Lewis said, a children's story that is only interesting to children is not a good children's story in the slightest. You know that one. So this is about a kid named Al. Al's around 10. He had a sister named Joyce who was just turning 7. So that age spread was pretty big. So Al thought, and Al's mother said, Al, your sister Joyce is having a birthday party. Now this is a wintertime story. It happened in the winter. And Al said, well, good for her. And Al's mother said, Joyce is going to have a big party. And Al said, good for her. And Joyce's mom and Al's mom said, and I want you to invite all your friends to Joyce's party. No, thank you, Mother. I don't want to come to Joyce's party. Well, I've already invited your friends, and I've told their parents, and they're all going to be here. So it was outside because there was going to be a lot of ice cream. And if you've ever had kids with a lot of ice cream, it's going to be a big mess. So they were all outside, and there were helium balloons taped to the table, and there was cake and ice cream. And Al's mom had gotten big buckets of, like the 5-gallon kind of vanilla, chocolate, and Rocky Road. Now, Al's mom knew that none of the kids would eat Rocky Road. So she was going to have to eat it herself. And one of the little girls, one of Joyce's friends, had never, ever had all the ice cream she could eat if she wanted to. And Al's mom said, kids, eat this stuff up. I don't have room. I only have room for one tub. And I guess it's going to have to be the Rocky Road. And one little girl just like, could not believe her good fortune and got a big bowl of chocolate ice cream. And what do you think happened? Before she threw up, she felt pain. Have you ever eaten ice cream, people? She got brain freeze. And she had never had brain freeze. And she, as we used to say when I was young, freaked out. And she's like, and she thought her skull was cracking. And that all the parents gathered around the little child, and all the 7-year-olds left. Well, the 10-year-olds knew what was happening. And the 10-year-olds were left with helium balloons and ice cream, all the ice cream they could eat. But they had already had all the ice cream they wanted because they were mature 10-year-olds. They knew their limits. And there were helium balloons, Mylar helium balloons on strings. Well, what's going to happen when 10-year-olds are around helium balloons? What? Inhale. Inhale? This is a children's song. I can't, like... I can find you work. Don't take away my punchlines. So the kids got around, and Al was a skinny kid. He was a competitive swimmer, and he went... and his feet left the ground. Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for that funny voice from his sister's balloon, 7-year-old Joyce. At 98.6 degrees, that gas became warm, making Al even more airborne. He bumped on the edge of the stratosphere. His mama yelled, Al, come right back down here. Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for the funny voice from his sister's balloon, 7-year-old Joyce. A 737 happened by. The captain looked out and said, who's that guy who's all inflated, flying without no wings? It kind of makes you want to sing. Sing it if you know it. Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for that funny voice from his sister's balloon. 7-year-old Joyce. Children, if you try this, you're bound to fail. Eventually, you have got to exhale. As Al descended, he grabbed a tree, squeaking, "Help, help, 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 help me." That's the funny voice. You don't need no balloon, do you, man? Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for that funny voice from his sister's balloon. 7-year-old Joyce. And now I have to whistle because this, contractually, I'm contractually obligated. Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for that funny voice from his sister's balloon. 7-year-old Joyce. His sister's balloon, of course, was deflated, but Joyce rejoiced when Al was berated by his mama, who said, "You're not allowed to fly since you don't have a pilot's license." Al Hooray was cold that day, the day he upped and flew away, breathing helium for that funny voice from his sister's balloon. 7-year-old Joyce. Thank you. I got to bring my clock out here, so if you see me saluting Keith in the back, hi, Keith. Everybody say hi, Keith. It's not just that I'm saluting him, but I'm trying to see the clock. All right. So, as you know, we're streaming. It's not live streaming. It's we're recording this for people who were too lazy to show up. Sorry, everyone. We're happy that you're here. I don't know which camera to look at. Virtually. Anyway, my Aunt Marguerite is 85 years old. Yeah, 85. She's a recent medical school graduate, as a lot of you already know, and she and her dear friend, Mary Frances, who's also a doctor, they were in the fellowship hall of the First United Methodist Church of my town, and they had just gone to a wedding. In fact, it was the wedding of Mary Frances's nephew. It's the kind of wedding, if you're invited to it, you should go to it. It's the kind of wedding where the flower girl was the daughter of the bride and groom. Pay attention, everyone. And the new associate minister had done the wedding, and Marguerite and Mary Frances were talking about the new associate minister. She had done such a good job. A young woman named E.E. Cummings. Now, Elaine Elizabeth Cummings, Mama and Daddy did not realize that eventually she would be called E.E. for short, and did not know there was a poet named E.E. Cummings, but she was Elaine Elizabeth, was named after her grandmothers, both of them, alphabetically, and Marguerite and Mary Frances were saying, didn't Marguerite said, didn't E.E. do a good job on her homily in the wedding? She sure did. I'm so proud of her. She did a good job. But I'm so happy for her, and the wedding was just so tasteful and good. Well, I'm worried. One thing about E.E. Cummings, there's one thing I'm worried about. What was that? Well, she's dating Billy, and I think they're probably going to get married. Well, I don't see any problem with that. He's a good boy. He's a nice young man. Well, you know what's going to happen. Those preachers, those young women preachers, she's going to hyphenate her name. Is Barbara McBride Smith here? Don't tell her. All right, so
She's going to hyphenate her name. Well, I don't see any problem with her hyphenating her name. Well, you know, children like that, they're going to have children. They're going to have hyphenated names, and they're going to have more children with hyphenated names, and they're all going to get married in a few generations. You're going to have a real expensive tombstone. Besides, Billy's last name is Goins.
Well, it's a Methodist reception, you know, and they're eating, you know, the reception food of my people. You know, they're having pimento cheese sandwiches with the crust cut off, and Watergate salad, and cheese straws, and flat Sprite with gummy lime sherbet floating in it. And it was a bit of a potluck, and there was other stuff in there, and there were other things on their plate, including, well, here comes Sally Lynette. Mary Frances said, "Oh, here comes Sally Lynette, and she wants to talk to you, and she's eating."
What are you talking about? We're all eating. And I did not say eating. I said eating. She is eating. What do you mean? Honey, what do you call it when you're inebriated from drinking? Drunk? She has had 4 or 5 of Louise Cook's bourbon balls. She's eating. Past participle of eat. That's how it works. Did you make that up? It's a medical fact. Somebody has to make it up.
And it was. And Sally Lynette, being a good United Methodist, was a teetotaler, because theoretically we're supposed to be. And Sally Lynette didn't know why she was so happy, but she had a clipboard with her because she wanted Marguerite to sign a petition to put the 10 Commandments up at the courthouse. Yeah, she's coming. She goes,
Marguerite Sugar. Hi. Marguerite, I need to talk to you, darling.
And here came Sally Lynette with a little clipboard.
Honey, I need you to sign. Glory to God. I need you to sign our petition to put the 10 Commandments up at the courthouse.
Well, honey, I don't think I need to sign that.
Well, I need everybody to know. We need to know everybody. We need everybody to know we're a Christian community.
Honey, there's a church at every corner in town.
Well, the kind of Christian community we are, we should have that at our courthouse.
Well, I would rather have, rather than the 10 Commandments, I'd rather have the 8 Beatitudes at our courthouse.
I've never heard of such a thing.
And Marguerite smiled, that secret smile she smiles, because as long as she's known Sally Lynette, which is her entire life, she's never happy, and until she can make Sally Lynette say that she had never heard of such a thing. And Marguerite's pretty good at making Sally Lynette say, "I've never heard of such a thing." Well,
Now, Marguerite Sugar, you know that I'm going to come by your house on Tuesday because, you know, you wanted to have it appraised, and I heard you needed to have it appraised, so I want to help you with that, Sugar.
All right, I appreciate that.
and indeed, Marguerite was going to have her house appraised, because when the time comes that she passes away, she's going to have the house sold. Her daughter lives in Cambridge. Nobody else in the family needs a house, and that will be liquidated, and that money will be passed around. And if you were here yesterday, you know this, that Marguerite does like to donate to Doctors Without Borders, not to be confused with Doctors Without Boundaries. It's a totally different group of people, and that's what was going to happen. And Sally Lynette got wind of that and wanted to help Marguerite, and she owes Marguerite a favor. She really is happy to help Marguerite with that.
Well, I'm glad you're going to come and help me with that, Sally Lynette. I'll see you Tuesday morning.
I know we need to prepare for anything that might unexpected may transpire.
Honey, at my age, nothing's unexpected.
So indeed, that was to happen. Now, Tuesday morning, very early, before Sally Lynette could get there, Steve arrived. Now, Marguerite's having a new roof put on her house. The new roof is not to add value to the house. It's a 25-year roof, a 25-year roof that's about 35 years old. She She needs a new roof. And Sally Lynette was making her way to Marguerite's house. She's so happy. Not that long ago, Sally Lynette had a medical emergency. And that was because she was driving to sell a house. She's a realtor. I don't think I mentioned that, but that's how she can help her with that. She was on her way to sell a house, and she was talking on her Nokia cell phone and driving with her knee while she ate a Subway sandwich. And a kitty cat ran in front of her house. Now, Sally Lynette's hair is kind of short and it's black. In fact, her hair color is clear, all black velvet. The official hair color of Elvis. And that's a fact. You can look at it. And she's driving along. Kitty cat runs around, and the cell phone got caught in her hair. And her ringtone was the hustle. So she made her way to Marguerite and Mary Frances Hospital, their little hospitals, in an antebellum home. It was abandoned for 10 years before they bought it, and it
Has 2 magnolia trees on the side, so we only have to paint the front. And we have a carport portico, and when Gene Cannon retired from his Pure Oil station, we bought his air hose bell. So that's how we know we have an emergency.
and so here comes Sally Lynette. Tang, tang.
Oh, let's go see who it is.
And there was Sally Lynette.
Honey, you gotta help me with this cellular mobile phone that's caught in my hair.
Marguerite said, honey, you don't need us. You need a beauty parlor.
Well, I'm in pain. And you took a Hippocratic oath. You can't tell a soul.
Well, here came Mary Frances. Now, Mary Frances practices holistic medicine. She pulls out her bandage scissors. There you go. Of course, she was due to go to the beauty parlor. You know what I'm saying? It was like this white patch now. She looked like she had been in an explosion playing the part of Pepe Le Pew. And well, that now was a medical emergency, so they rushed her in. And, Mary Frances has never cut hair before, so she's having fun. Click, 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 click. Marguerite went down to the drugstore, got some clear all black velvet, came back. They washed it, and and it's all different lengths. And needs some product, Well, they do colonoscopies. They open the drawer. That usually comes in a tube. Comes in little packets. It's the abbreviation for Kentucky. And if you get it, you shouldn't be offended. But I can tell some of you are. And they spiked it up. It's amazing stuff. Then they put her in front of the mirror.
I look 10 years younger.
And they charged her plenty for that medical procedure. Well, that's what, Sally Lynette was so grateful for that. She was to help Marguerite, and she arrived. And when she arrived, Steve had arrived with his crew. Now, Steve's the kind of guy, he hires people that nobody else will hire. People that may have been in some sort of trouble, including a guy named Squeaky. Squeaky's 5'5". He's built like a fire hydrant. You can just tell he's this natural mighty dude, and now he's got a little table muscle. You know what I'm saying? And Squeaky's he used to have flaming red hair and flaming red beard, piercing blue eyes, and now it's salt and pepper, salt and paprika. And what happens with Squeaky is Squeaky gets paid, and when he gets paid, he turns it into cash, and he goes down to the twitching monkey. And he has too much to drink, and he gets in a fight, and then he ends up wearing orange and white stripes, mowing in the cemetery behind Marguerite's house. And then he does his time, and he goes back to work. Steve always picks him up at the north entrance of the cemetery, which is the main entrance of the cemetery in our town. Squeaky says, pick me up at the north part of the cemetery. Steve acts like he doesn't know where Squeaky lives. Everybody acts like they don't know where Squeaky lives, but Squeaky took the keys from the deputy once to get tools from this granite tool shed that's in the cemetery that is literally 150 years old. There are no records of when this place was built. And stuff around where I live is made of granite because there's a lot of granite. And inside, people have seen there's a cot, and there's a heater. In the back is a porta-john. Next to that is one of those black Coleman camping showers that gets hot in the sun. That's where Squeaky has been living for about 2 years. And the deputy knows it, and all the other prisoners know it, and the sheriff knows it, and nobody talks about it because Squeaky works hard. And now he's working for Steve. He's a hard worker. He doesn't talk a lot. Marguerite was in front of her one-car garage that doesn't have an automatic genie because she and her husband never had one. And Marguerite figures when she can't open the garage anymore, she ought not drive. Well, the compressor was in there. They had been working on the house from the day before, and the ladders. Marguerite was standing there, and Sally Lynette had arrived and walked around the workers trying to not see them because she's superior to them in every way. And she's talking to Marguerite.
Are you ready to go in and look at your house, Shogo?
Sally Lynette had a different clipboard now. Marguerite said, just a minute. And Squeaky walked up to her and saw the door was locked, the little T-handle, on the old garage door. And Squeaky simply said, door. Marguerite produced the keys and unlocked the door and was waiting for Squeaky to help her lift it, but he didn't. Marguerite pulled on the T-handle and pushed the door open, as she does whenever she drives her 1968 Plymouth Fury 2. But it's not in there right now. There's the ladder and the compressor. Squeaky moved the compressor. He plugged it in. Squeaky doesn't use the nail gun that the compressor is for. He still has his hexagon-handled oak handle, right? It's hickory, actually. And he has a tool belt with a measuring tape right here, the carpenter's codpiece. And he gets 2 bundles of shingles and he climbs the ladder with no hands. And he reaches in for the tacks. And somehow when he reaches in for the tacks, 3 of them are poking out between his fingers. And he punches them in. Pa, 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 ka, ka, ka. Boom, boom, boom. Ka, ka, ka. He's not as fast as the nail gun, but he's pretty fast. But it's so much more elegant. And Marguerite admires Squeaky because he works so hard. But Sally Lynette, having seen Squeaky in front of the garage door, said,
Did you see what that man said to you in front of your garage door without a please or thank you of any kind? I've never seen such a thing.
Marguerite said, well, that may be so, but he's a hard worker.
So then it was time for Marguerite and Sally Lynette to go into the house, for Sally Lynette to appraise her house. Now, Marguerite doesn't run her air conditioner until it hits 95. She doesn't like air conditioning. She has a couple of window fans. She has an attic fan that pulls all the hot air out of the house. And she has the windows open. Sally Lynette noticed that Marguerite's kitchen smelt like the kitchen of her own grandmother. She didn't like that smell. Although Marguerite likes the way her kitchen smells, it smells like home. Sally Lynette was looking around the kitchen that Marguerite and her husband installed when they got married, where Marguerite cooked for her husband and her daughter and anybody else who came over. And Sally Lynette said,
Honey, when's the last time you had your kitchen upgraded?
any realtors here? Realtors love to upgrade stuff. Marguerite's looking at it.
Well, let me see now. I just had a new heating element put in the dishwasher. And it's got a cutting bolt on top. It hooks up to the sink. It works fine. And we got the refrigerator in '94, so it's new.
And that was it. That's all she had done. Sally Lynette produced a pencil and wrote that down, and she produced a golf ball. She put the golf ball on the floor, and somehow the golf ball rolled under the refrigerator and somehow found a place to roll back. It was kind of fun to watch. Sally Lynette wrote that down. They went through the house. It's a 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom.
1 bath? You only have 1 bath?
Well, it was just 3 of us here. We did fine. And
Sally Lynette went in and said,
honey, you know, some of the more vulgar people call this a one-butt bathroom.
Marguerite said, how many butts do you need in a bathroom?
And then they turned into Marguerite's room, her bedroom, and there was a sound, and the sound was, Sally Lynette darted back and said, "Is that a dog?"
Marguerite said, oh, I believe it is.
And Marguerite has a dog, and the dog's name is Marguerite. Because Marguerite's very dear friend, Joy, her husband, Joy's husband, she lives down in Cordele, and Joy's husband, he wanted a dog, and you know, he wanted one more dog, and so Joy's husband gave Joy a dog for her birthday. Following that, said, honey, you can name this dog anything you want. And, you know, Joy named the dog after her dear friend Marguerite. And when Joy died, there it was in the will. Marguerite was to get the dog. It's legally binding. It's a Vizsla pointer. Yeah, it's a fast little dog, and biggest medium dog. And so Marguerite has that dog, and the dog's a good judge of character.
Whoa. Listen, Sally Lynette, why don't you go out the front and go into the garage? I know you want to see it, and I'll take my dog out back.
And Marguerite the dog, and Marguerite the lady went out, and Marguerite picked up a tennis ball and said, fetch. And the dog said, okay. And brought the ball back, put it down, and said, will you throw it again, please? And Marguerite, why, certainly, one more time now, fetch. I mean, you know what your dog is saying to you, right? And the dog comes back, and the dog asked, how long is that lady going to be here? Marguerite said,
not too long now. I'm going to go out the gate. You stay.
And the dog sat and said, fine. And Marguerite was slowly walking to the garage, because she knew that Sally Lynette was going to discover something. And she knew the second that Sally Lynette discovered that something when she heard,
Ah! What is this?
and what Sally Lynette had seen was in the back of the garage, as I said, it's a one-car garage. There's there's that big tool cabinet where the chainsaw and the weed whacker and stuff is. The lawnmower goes under that. It's, 2.5 feet wide. And it goes all the way back to the garage, and it stops short about 2.5 feet. And there on the wall, nothing else around it, is one lone urinal. Sally Lynette was staring at the urinal, pointing.
Well, what is that? Is that one of those French things?
She's a good Methodist lady. She's never seen one of those.
I didn't know that's Charles's. That's a urinal.
I've never seen such a thing. I can't sell this. I can't sell this house with a urinal. What? I can't even say that. I can't sell this. You're going to have that removed.
So Marguerite starts calculating in her mind how much it's going to cost her to remove her urinal so she'll make more money from her house when she's dead. All right, so here's how my Uncle Charles came to have a urinal in his garage. When I was in high school, I played tri-toms for the Newton County High School Blue Rambler Marching Band. Sorry, Keith, was I moving out of the shot? All right, okay. So, this one time we played for the ultimate high school marching band gig. We played for an Atlanta Falcons football game. Yeah, back when the halftime show was an acoustic act. And we went to the old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, that big, round, cookie-cutter stadium. And we got on the bus, and we were singing. We were so excited. We were going to play a football game. We were going to play an NFL game. We were going to be able to watch the game. It's going to be so much fun. We were drinking Coca-Colas and water and drinking Coca-Colas and water. And this is back in the days when the drummers were in the back. Now, my Uncle Charles, Marguerite's husband, he hung out with me because I was just more fun to hang out with than his daughter, who didn't want to necessarily have him around. She was playing piccolo. She was in the very front of the band. It's so small. How hard can it be? But I'm in the back with the drummers, and Uncle Charles is there, and we're lining up. We go through this big area where any tractor trailer truck can enter the stadium, and then we get out of the bus, and then we're walking down this long corridor, and there are incandescent light bulbs in cages, so they can't get out. And we're walking, and I had to go to the bathroom right now. And I was not in Covington, Georgia, which means I was going to have to go indoors somewhere. If you saw where I lived, you kind of go, yeah, I see how that is. All right, so like, Uncle Charles, I got to go. And I'm wearing the Tritoms, and this is in the old days when the Tritoms were made of a material called steel. And it's an aluminum thing, and this is when I was skinny. And it's landing right on my bladder, I'm like, and so Uncle Charles, in his mercy, like picks up the drums, and he's kind of holding them away from me. Uncle Charles, I'm about to blow. It's bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. I got to go. And we're looking around. We don't know. And we're like lemmings. We're just following. We're in the back of 80 people. We don't know what's going on. We're just walking. And then we come into this area where there's a strip of blue light, a little higher than head level. And we look around, and we see these, they're not lockers. They're just kind of caged, partitioned areas, and we see Hank Aaron, Phil Necro, Rico Cardi. We're in the Braves clubhouse. They're going to have the band come out through the dugout. And it was so great. And I wanted to enjoy it more than I could, but I had to go. And then we came out to the dugout because the guy in charge of us says, all right, y'all, 3 minutes to the 2-minute warning. And we're assembling out on the field. And there, we were the last ones there. My Uncle Charles and I. There's the bench and that old dugout. And there's a wall perpendicular to the bench that kind of pokes out. Invisible from the field, perfectly visible from the bench. And on that perpendicular wall is one lone urinal. And my Uncle Charles said, Andy, look at that. That is the most beautiful thing. Now, my Uncle Charles had played baseball all through high school, and you don't play a sport all through high school without thinking that maybe this is what you will do. And my Uncle Charles, one time, before this happened, my Uncle Charles and I were moving leaves in his yard using tools called rakes. So elegant. Doesn't disturb the neighbors. Doesn't pollute the air. And Uncle Charles came to the corner of the fence. His right hand was at the bottom part of the rake. His left hand was at the top. And when he came to the corner, his right hand went to the top, and his left hand went to the bottom. I said, Uncle Charles, you're a switch raker. And he leaned on his rake, and he looked wistful. He goes, yeah, when I was 14, I wanted to learn to be a switch hitter, but my coach wouldn't let me. I could have gone to the show. But now we're in that dugout, and Uncle Charles is pointing at the urinal and saying, Andy, this is your chance. Go ahead. I said, I can't. He says, Andy, I'll never have a chance like this. Regret is bitter. And I can tell you now, in my own wistful fashion, that at my age, I know it'll never be that good again. So it wasn't that long after that we Uncle Charles was out, and they were tearing down an old Gulf station, and he knew the contractor, and there on top of the rubble of the Gulf station was a urinal, and he gets out of the car, and he goes up to the contractor and says, what are y'all doing with that urinal? The guy says, throwing it away. It's scrap. He goes, can I have it? The guy says, sure. So Uncle Charles and a buddy of his plumbed it into the garage, and there it is. If he's out in the yard, he has to go. He doesn't have to go to the back where somebody might see him because Margarita's caught him out there, and she doesn't like it. So now he had his own urinal. It was beautiful. And there it is in the garage, and Sally Lynette's looking at it. And At the end of the day, Sally and Lynette had left, and then Steve and his crew had left, and Squeaky had left, and everybody had left. And Marguerite hears in the distance, there's mowing in the cemetery, and it's getting closer to the house. And she knows that eventually those fellows in orange and white stripes will be making it to her backyard, but now it's time to walk her dog. Now, this is the first dog she's ever known in her house during the leash law era. So she takes the dog out into the cemetery. And what she does is she'll have the dog on the leash until it's time to number 2. And she makes sure that the dog goes on a grave of somebody who wouldn't care. Or maybe somebody who deserves it. And then after that, she unhooks the leash and lets her dog run. Now, the cemetery, the whole big cemetery, I don't even know how many acres. It's a lot of acres. It's all fenced in. And the dog will run and come back and run and come back because Vizslas are running dogs. They need to run. And she's so happy when the dog is running. And this is a particular time when it was misty. It was like it was a few days ago, last week. It was drizzly just a little bit, but visibility was like down to 20 or 30 feet. And she's running and running and running, the dog. And Marguerite would go, and when she goes, Marguerite, the dog, would come back and sit. And Marguerite was reaching down to put the leash back on the dog's collar when she looked up and she saw a specter, a ghost. Now, there's not a time of day or night that she hasn't been in this cemetery. She's never seen anything like this. Not just one, but 2 happy, dancing ghosts, about the size of my arm from elbow to tip of my hand, dancing and bounding over tombstones like that. It was terrifying and happy at the same time. Well, the dog saw the same thing, and the dog took off. And when the dog took off, Marguerite still had her hand around the dog's collar, and she fell to her knees in the wet grass. And the woo, 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 the dog's chasing those specters. And Marguerite stood up and she starts calling the dog, Marguerite! Marguerite! And she realizes that if anybody sees her in the cemetery at night with wet knees screaming her old name, she might not be able to practice medicine anymore. In his home with the door open because it was that kind of day when he wanted a little cool air to come through the door because that heater made the place so hot, was Squeaky. And Marguerite saw light coming from the tool shed. And she saw the dog running towards the north entrance to the cemetery. And if that dog gets out the north entrance, she doesn't know how she's going to get her back. Marguerite! Marguerite! And she sees a figure walking out under the sodium vapor light. There's a cigarette hanging on the end of that figure, and Squeaky walks out, and he hears the call, Marguerite, Marguerite, and woo, 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 and he sees 2 white-tailed deer come bounding by him, and then he sees the dog, and he just says, and the dog said, what? Squeaky said, sit. And the dog sat. Stay. Dog stayed. Okay. Now what? Stay. And Squeaky went into the tool shed, and he unspooled some rope. There's some rope thing there, and he took his knife. He cut the rope. Marguerite. He didn't want to fool with that. So he made a slip knot, put around the dog's neck, and he went out the north entrance to the cemetery, and he turned east. Marguerite lives on the east side of the cemetery. She made her way back. You know, she saw them leaving in that light, and she just made her way back to the gate, and there, tied to the bumper of her 1968 Plymouth Fury 2, was Marguerite the dog. She started to figure it out. So the next morning, the cemetery guys were close to the house. And here came Sally Lynette, and here came the county appraiser, and here came Steve and his crew. And Marguerite waited for Steve and his crew to come. She watched Squeaky. Sally Lynette came up to Marguerite. She was standing in front of her garage door. She didn't feel like having Marguerite or the appraiser in her home at that time. Sally Lynette said,
Honey, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is your property taxes are going to go down.
Here came Squeaky. Marguerite didn't listen for Squeaky. She just went ahead and opened the garage door and threw it open. She watched Squeaky put the ladder up against the house, get 2 bundles of roofing material, climb the ladder, pat, pat, pat. And then at the cemetery fence, there was a man standing at the cemetery fence on the other side of the fence in orange and white stripes, looking up at Squeaky. And that man took 2 fingers and brought them to his mouth. Like that. So Squeaky twirled his hammer, put it in the loop of his tool belt, came down the ladder, no hands, facing out, walked up to the fence, produced a Marlboro, stuck it through the links of the fence, took his cricket lighter, and lit the man's cigarette. The man behind the fence nodded his head. Squeaky nodded his head. Squeaky made his way back to the ladder. Marguerite put herself in front of the ladder, so Squeaky was going to eventually have to look her in the eye, not letting him up the ladder. Eventually he did look Marguerite in the eye, and Marguerite nodded her head, and Squeaky nodded his head. Marguerite stood aside. Squeaky went up the ladder. Sally Lynette said,
Did you see what that man did with that prisoner? Through that fence on your property with a cigarette and a light. I've never seen such a thing.
Marguerite said, No, I haven't either. Blessed are the merciful.
Am I in there? Am I not muted? All right. Thanks again. I'm going to end with another song. It's a traditional story. This is Homer's Odyssey. We'll be here till Sunday. I am just a rambling boy. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong key. Okay, I didn't practice this backstage. Hold on. Okay, I know this song. I made it up, so I should. It's in A minor, not E minor. Somebody should have said, Andy, it's in A minor. I am just a rambling boy, Ithaca bound. Making my way there from Troy. Here's an adventure that I found. Is the Cyclops winking or blinking? That eyeball in his head. I listen for sounds of serenity with every word that he has said. I notice his squint, his mouth smirky slant. Can I see a friendly glance? No, I can't, and his complimentary mints are covered with ants. And a Cyclops winking or blinking. Oh, is a Cyclops winking or blinking? How can I read his mood? I wonder what he is thinking. I'm thinking he thinks of me as food. Compared to this giant, I'm a little shrimp. He's putting mascara on his one-eye to primp. How can you tell if a snake has a limp? And a Cyclops winking or blinking. Oh, is a Cyclops winking or blinking? I just want to leave this cave.
And from the way this cavern is stinking, I can tell Polyphemus don't never bathe. I wonder how this drama ends. This giant ain't getting no help from his friends, but he only pays half for his contact lens. And the Cyclops winking or blinking. Oh. That is the end of the instrumental verse. It ain't really an instrument, but it could be worse. And if I don't whistle, Crystal will curse. And the Cyclops winking or blinking. Oh, is the Cyclops winking or blinking? All alone, he feels bereft. And I saw him try to swat that fly. It's clear he cannot perceive death. So I stabbed him in the eye. Yes, I know. Ew, sometimes you gotta try when there's nothing else to do. Now I've gotta ride out underneath this U. All right, so, you learned this in the 9th grade. It's Odysseus, and he's traveling. This is Homer's Odyssey, I told you, and he's traveling. He's trying to get back to Penelope, and he's trying to get back to Troy, and he looks around, and there are fewer and fewer fellow travelers, and he wonders where his fellow travelers are, and he's like, where'd everybody go, man? Come on. And he's hungry, and he's tired, and he's thirsty, and then he smells a barbecue joint. Oh, it's wonderful. There's smoke coming out of the cave. It's delicious barbecue, and it must be a pretty good place because the parking lot is dirt. Because if you're like me, you won't eat at a barbecue joint with a paved parking lot. I see that. I'm glad you're here, sir. You're my favorite. It's true. And so he goes in, and there are people on a spit, and he realizes that what's cooking is his fellow travelers. And there's Polyphemus. That's the name of the Cyclops, is Polyphemus, which obviously means many famouses. Or I guess femi would be the plural. Anyway, he's there, and Polyphemus, he's cooking, and he sees Odysseus. He's like, hot dog, there's another right there. And yes, Polyphemus eats people, but he's still concerned about his food sources. So he asks, what is your name? And Odysseus says, nobody. And Polyphemus says, what is your name? And Odysseus picks up a stick, pulls out his pocket knife, starts whittling. Nobody. What is your name? Nobody. And then he stabs him in the eye. And for only one big eye, of course. Nobody has stabbed me in the eye. Nobody has stabbed me in the eye. And all the other giants in the neighborhood said, nobody has stabbed Polyphemus in the eye. Nobody has stabbed Polyphemus in the eye. So I guess Polyphemus ain't stabbed in the eye. And a lot of people don't know this, but in all of literature, the giants around Polyphemus are the first characters to ever say, duh. So then Polyphemus is so dumb, he ends his sentences with prepositions. So he says, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? So what Odysseus does is he gets under a sheep. There's sheep all in there, and he gets under the sheep, and Polyphemus is feeling of all the sheep, but Odysseus is under the sheep. He's like, where you at? Where you at? But Odysseus was under a U. And a U is a sheep, a feet. He's no longer winking or blinking. Oh, he's no longer winking or blinking. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know, that was sweet. I know you have an entertainment choice here in Jonesboro, Tennessee. On a Wednesday. I know a lot of you have church tonight. But thank you for joining us at the International Storytelling Center. And I hope you come to a bunch of the other gigs. We're sort of like waking back up from that 3-year sleep we were in for a while, right? And yeah, isn't it cool? And I am so grateful. I am a grateful vagabond. What?
What about Terry? Couldn't make it this time. Terry, he plays bass for me. And Terry, everybody says, where's Terry? Because he's, what? Are you making a request, boss? Yes. All right, I'll do that. I was going to do something else. So this is a song I made up for storytellers. And it's so I'm encouraging you all, to tell your stories to all your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-nephews and nieces and your children. Tarry here, where the stories never grow old, and you hear something new every time they are told, and it comes clear. So tarry here, where it doesn't matter your age, and when we gather around the table, we all take the stage year after year. So tarry here, we're living now and we're all in this place. So be sure to smile at each passing face as it draws near. And tarry here. And then we all will see the me and you, the you and me. And as we leave these grounds, we can rejoice in what we found. So tarry here with Catherine, Sid, Jackie, and Doc. And when we tell their tales, we stop the clock. I know they're here. They tarry here. Tarry here, where the stories never grow old, and you hear something new every time they are told, and it comes clear to tarry here. Thank you all so very much.